The crystal paperweight shattered against the mahogany table, sending shards across the boardroom like frozen tears. Lena's hands trembled as she scrambled to gather the scattered documents, her heart hammering so violently she thought everyone could hear it. 20 pairs of eyes watched her, some pitying, most indifferent, but only one gaze made her skin burn. Ethan Blackwood didn't move from his position at the head of the table. His fingers were still steepled beneath his chin, his expression carved from ice. He'd just dismantled a hostile takeover attempt with 3 sentences and a phone call that had made grown men pale. Now, as the executives filed out in uncomfortable silence, his attention fixed on the intern trembling on her knees, desperately collecting papers. "Everyone out," he said quietly. The remaining stragglers vanished like smoke. Lena's fingers fumbled with the last document. She could feel him watching, could sense the weight of his scrutiny pressing down on her shoulders. When she finally stood, clutching the disheveled papers to her chest, she forced herself to meet his eyes. They were darker than she'd imagined. Not just brown, obsidian, consuming every bit of light that dared approach them. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Blackwood. I'll have these reorganized within the hour." "Your wrist," he interrupted, his voice low and controlled. "How did that happen?" Lena's blood turned to ice. She'd been so careful with her sleeves, but when she'd knelt to gather the papers, the fabric had shifted. The bruise was purple-black, finger-shaped, and damning. "I'm clumsy," she said quickly, too quickly. "I bruise easily." Ethan stood. He was taller than she'd realized, broad-shouldered beneath the immaculate suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. He moved around the table with the fluid grace of a predator, each step measured and deliberate. "4 fingers and a thumb," he observed, stopping 3 feet away from her. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. Clumsiness has poor grip consistency. Lena's throat closed. Nobody had noticed. Nobody had cared enough to notice. But this man, this terrifying, powerful man who'd just eviscerated a room full of executives, had seen what she'd hidden for months. "It's nothing," she whispered. "Nothing," Ethan repeated, and something flickered behind those obsidian eyes. Something almost human. Almost dangerous. That was the moment the most powerful man in the city decided she would never be unprotected again. If you're already hooked, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think Ethan will do next. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when a billionaire decides someone belongs under his protection. Lena didn't understand what she'd seen in Ethan Blackwood's eyes that day. She wouldn't understand until it was far too late. Monday morning, she arrived at work to find her desk had been moved. Not to the basement bullpen where interns usually huddled, but to the executive floor. 47th floor. Corner office reception area. 3 doors down from Ethan Blackwood himself. There must be a mistake, she told Patricia, the CEO's personal assistant, a woman whose perfume cost more than Lena's rent. Patricia's smile was thin. "Mr. Blackwood requested you specifically. You'll be handling his overflow work until further notice." Lena's stomach dropped. "But I'm just an intern. I don't have the clearance." "You do now." Patricia handed her a new security badge. "He wants you to start with these." She deposited a stack of files on Lena's new desk, sleek glass and chrome, positioned directly in Ethan's line of sight from his office. For 3 days, Lena kept her head down and worked. She felt his presence like a physical weight, though he never spoke to her directly. He would emerge from his office for meetings, his movements precise and controlled, and she would feel his gaze sweep over her before he continued on. Checking. Always checking. On Thursday, everything changed. Marcus Chin, a senior manager with wandering hands and a reputation that HR conveniently ignored, stopped by her desk. Fresh meat on the executive floor. He leaned against her desk, deliberately crowding her space. "You must be something special to catch Blackwood's eye. What did you do to earn this promotion, sweetheart?" The implication hung in the air like poison. Lena's face burned. "I'm just doing my job, Mr. Chin." "I bet you are." His hand reached for her shoulder. "Maybe you could do your job for me sometime, Mr. Chin." Ethan's voice cut through the air like a blade. He stood in his doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled to his elbows. His expression was perfectly neutral, but something in his stillness made Marcus step back immediately. I need those Q3 projections revised. You have 2 hours. But those aren't due until 2 hours. And Marcus? Ethan's tone dropped lower, quieter. Somehow that made it more terrifying. If I ever see you within 3 feet of Ms. Rivera's desk again, I'll have HR review every interaction you've had with female employees for the past 5 years. I imagine that would be illuminating. Marcus went pale. He turned and practically ran to the elevators. Ethan's gaze shifted to Lena. My office. Now. Her legs felt like water as she followed him inside. He closed the door, not quite slamming it, but firmly enough that the glass rattled in its frame. For a long moment he stood with his back to her, hands braced against his desk, head bowed. How long? He asked finally. I don't. How long has Marcus Chin been harassing you? Lena's mouth went dry. It's not. He just makes comments sometimes. It's not a big deal. Ethan turned, and the look in his eyes stole her breath. Not anger, something far more dangerous. Something possessive and primal that had no place in a corporate office. Not a big deal, he repeated softly. Someone makes you uncomfortable in your workplace, and it's not a big deal. I can handle it. You shouldn't have to. He moved closer and Lena's back hit the door. He stopped an arm's length away, giving her space but making his point clear. You work for me now. That means you're under my protection. Do you understand? Why? The word burst from her before she could stop it. Why do you care? You don't even know me. Something flickered across his face, too fast to identify. I know enough. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. He reached past her, and she flinched before realizing he was just opening the door. His jaw tightened at her reaction. Go home. Driver will take you. I don't need. It wasn't a request, Lena. The way he said her name, low and careful, like something precious he was afraid to break, made her shiver. That night, a black car waited outside the building. The driver was professional, quiet, and took a route that avoided her usual walk through the parking garage. When they pulled up to her apartment building, he handed her a card. Mr. Blackwood's instructions, miss. Call this number if you ever feel unsafe. Day or night. Lena stared at the card, her emotions a tangled mess. She should feel violated. This man was inserting himself into her life without permission. But she also felt something else. Something she hadn't felt in months. She hated herself a little for it. The next morning, Ethan was waiting at her desk with coffee, exactly how she took it, though she'd never told him. Black, 2 sugars, a splash of cream. We need to discuss your living arrangements, he said without preamble. Lena nearly choked on her first sip. Excuse me? Your apartment building has inadequate security. I'm having you relocated. What? Absolutely not. It was the first time she'd ever seen surprise on his face. Clearly, people didn't tell Ethan Blackwood no very often. It's for your protection, he said, as if that explained everything. It's my life. Lena set down the coffee with shaking hands. You can't just rearrange things because you decide to. I can and I am. His tone brooked no argument. There are things you don't understand. Then explain them. She stood, surprising herself with her boldness. You've been watching me since the boardroom incident. You reassigned me, you threatened Marcus, you're sending drivers. What am I to you? The silence stretched between them like glass about to shatter. Ethan's control wavered. Just for a second, she saw something raw and desperate flash across his face. You're someone who needs protecting, he said finally. And I'm someone who protects what's mine. I'm not yours. Not yet. The words hung in the air between them, loaded with promise and threat in equal measure. Before Lena could respond, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went flat. We'll continue this conversation later. Stay on this floor today. Don't leave without security. He was gone before she could protest. Lena sank into her chair, her heart racing. What had she gotten herself into? The answer came 3 days later, during a late night at the office. Lena had volunteered to stay and finish a presentation, partly because the work needed doing, partly because her apartment felt suffocating with the knowledge that Ethan Blackwood had security watching it. She found him in his office at midnight, tie loosened, hair disheveled, staring at his computer screen with exhausted eyes. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked human. Vulnerable. "Mr. Blackwood?" She knocked softly on the open door. "I finished the presentation. I can email it to—" "Come in." His voice was rough. "And it's Ethan. We're past formalities, don't you think?" Lena stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "Are you okay?" He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Do I look okay?" "You look tired." "Tired?" He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "That's diplomatic. My last assistant said I looked like death warmed over." "What happened to your last assistant?" "I fired her for lying to me." He stood, moving to the window that overlooked the glittering city. "Everyone lies to me, Lena. They tell me what they think I want to hear, or they lie to get what they want. It's exhausting." Something in his voice made her move closer. "Is that why you're so controlling? Because you can't trust anyone?" "I'm not controlling. I'm protective." "There's a difference?" "There should be." He turned to face her, and the raw honesty in his expressions stole her breath. "When I was 15, my mother was killed in a mugging. Random. Senseless. She died because I wasn't there to protect her. Because my father was too busy building his empire to care. I swore I'd never let that happen again. Never let anyone under my care, be vulnerable." Lena's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just understand." He took a step toward her. "When I saw those bruises on your wrist, when I realized someone had hurt you and you were hiding it, something in me snapped. I can't explain it. I just knew you needed protection, and I was going to provide it. Whether you wanted it or not." "That's not how protection works, Ethan." "Then teach me." The desperation in his voice was devastating. "Because I don't know how to do this any other way. I don't know how to care without controlling." The admission cost him. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way his hands clenched at his sides. This man, who commanded boardrooms and built empires, was admitting weakness. Lena reached out before she could stop herself, her fingers brushing his hand. "You could start by asking what I need instead of deciding for me." Ethan's fingers closed around hers, gentle, reverent. "What do you need?" "I need to know this is real. That I'm not just some project to you. Some broken thing you're trying to fix." "You're not broken, Lena. You're the strongest person I've ever met." He lifted her hand, and for a heart-stopping moment, she thought he might kiss it. Instead, he just held it, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "And you're not a project. You're everything I didn't know I needed until I saw you on your knees in that boardroom, trying to hold yourself together when the world was crushing you." "Ethan, I know I'm doing this wrong. I know I'm scaring you. But I can't stop. I physically cannot make myself stop caring about your safety, your happiness, whether you're eating enough or sleeping well or—" He broke off, jaw clenching. "I'm obsessed with you, Lena. And I don't know if that's love or madness or something in between." Lena's heart was thunder in her chest. She should run. This man was dangerous, not because he'd hurt her, but because he'd consume her completely if she let him. But God help her, part of her wanted to be consumed. "I need time," she whispered, "to figure out if this is real or if I'm just drawn to your power." Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. "Take whatever time you need." "But Lena—" He released her hand, stepping back. "The security stays. Non-negotiable. I will not compromise your safety, even if you hate me for it." "I don't hate you." "You should." He turned away, dismissing her. "Go home. It's late." Lena left, but she could feel his eyes on her all the way to the elevator. Drop a comment and tell me, is Ethan romantic or too intense? And don't forget to like this video if you're feeling the tension. The next week was torture. Ethan was professionally distant, speaking to her only about work. But she felt him everywhere, in the security that shadowed her, in the way meetings were suddenly rescheduled when they ran past 7 p.m., in the coffee that appeared on her desk every morning, exactly how she liked it. He was keeping his promise. Protecting without controlling. Giving her space. It was driving her insane. Friday evening, Lena made a decision. She drafted her resignation letter, hands shaking as she typed. This was too much. Too intense. She needed distance before she drowned in whatever this was between them. She placed the letter on his desk after he left for a meeting. Then she packed her things and headed for the elevator. The doors were closing when a hand shot through, forcing them open. Ethan stood there, her resignation letter crumpled in his fist, his control completely shattered. "No," he said roughly. "Ethan. No." He stepped into the elevator, hitting the button for the parking garage. "You don't get to run. Not like this." "I'm not running. I'm protecting myself." "From me." The pain in his voice made her chest ache. "Lena, I would never hurt you. I know that. But you're hurting me anyway." Tears burned her eyes. "Every time you make decisions for me, every time you treat me like I'm fragile, you're telling me I'm not capable of taking care of myself. And maybe I'm not, maybe I'm weak, but I need to figure that out on my own." The elevator doors opened. Ethan's driver was waiting, but Ethan waved him away. "We're walking. Ethan. Please." The word was broken. "Just walk with me." They walked in silence through the parking garage and out into the cool night air. The city hummed around them, alive and indifferent. After 2 blocks, Ethan finally spoke. "You're not weak. You're terrified, and there's a difference. Someone hurt you, someone who was supposed to care about you. You carry that fear like armor, and I've been trying to break through it because I'm an arrogant bastard who thinks he knows what's best for everyone." Lena wiped her eyes. "You're not. I am. I built an empire by controlling every variable, by never leaving anything to chance. But you can't control people, Lena. You can't force them to heal on your timeline or love you the way you want to be loved." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "I've been so focused on protecting you that I never asked what you actually needed from me. I need you to trust me," she whispered. "To believe I'm strong enough to make my own choices, even when you disagree with them. What if your choices put you in danger? Then I'll deal with the consequences. Like an adult." Ethan flinched, but nodded slowly. "You're right. You're absolutely right, and I'm sorry. I'll have security pull back." "I didn't say that." Lena surprised herself by reaching for his hand. "The security can stay. But I want to say in where they are and when. I want to be part of the conversation, not just managed." Hope flickered in his eyes. "You'll stay?" "I'll stay." "But Ethan," she squeezed his hand, "if this is going to work, you need to let me in. All the way in. No more walls, no more control. Just honesty." "I don't know if I know how to do that." "Then we'll figure it out together." For the first time since she'd met him, Ethan Blackwood smiled. Really smiled, not the cold corporate mask, but something warm and genuine that transformed his entire face. "Together," he repeated. "I think I can work with that." They stood there on the sidewalk, hands clasped, while the city moved around them. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even close to resolved. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, beginnings were enough. The next month was a revelation. Ethan loosened his iron grip, slowly, painfully, like someone learning to walk after years of paralysis. He asked before sending security. He consulted her on decisions that affected her. He even admitted when he was wrong, which Lena suspected was physically painful for him. But old habits died hard. When David Morrison, a rival CEO with a reputation for hostile takeovers, started showing interest in Lena, Ethan's control came roaring back. It started innocently enough. David attended a charity gala where Lena was representing Blackwood Industries. He was charming, attentive, and made a point of introducing her to influential people. "He's using you to get to me," Ethan told her that night, his voice tight with barely suppressed fury. "Or maybe he's just being nice. Men like David Morrison are never just nice. He wants something. And what if he does? I can handle myself." Ethan's jaw clenched. I know you can. But Lena, This man is dangerous. He's destroyed companies for sport. If he thinks he can use you to hurt me, then let him try. Lena cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. I'm not going anywhere, Ethan. But you have to trust me to recognize manipulation when I see it. I trust you. I don't trust him. Then trust me to handle him. It nearly killed him, but Ethan nodded. 2 weeks later, Lena realized she'd made a mistake. David's interest wasn't corporate. It was personal. And when personal meant flowers at her desk, invitations to private dinners, and increasingly pointed questions about Blackwood Industries' acquisition strategy, she understood why Ethan had been worried. I need to tell you something, she said one evening, finding Ethan in his office. He looked up from his computer, immediate concern crossing his face. What's wrong? David Morrison asked me to dinner again. He said he wanted to discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement. When I pressed him, he implied that if I helped him gain intel on your company, he'd ensure I had a place in his organization when he took over. Ethan went very, very still. And what did you say? I told him to go to hell. But Ethan, she moved closer. He knows about us. About whatever this is between us. And he's going to use it. Let him try. Ethan's voice was ice. Did he touch you? No. But he stood too close. Made me uncomfortable. The muscle in Ethan's jaw ticked. Where's your phone? Why? Because you're calling him right now and telling him you'll accept his dinner invitation. You'll wear the bug I'm going to give you, and we'll have every word he says on record. Lena stared at him. You want me to go undercover? Ethan, I want you safe, and the only way to ensure that is to know exactly what Morrison is planning. He stood, moving around the desk. I know I promised to include you in decisions. So I'm asking, will you do this? Or do we find another way? Lena considered. This was a test of her courage, her trust in Ethan, and Ethan's ability to let her make dangerous choices. I'll do it, she said. But on one condition. We do this together. You don't send me in blind, and you don't make decisions without consulting me. Deal? Ethan's smile was sharp. Deal. But Lena? He pulled her close, his hand gentle on her waist. If he touches you, deal's off. I'll destroy him and every business he's ever been associated with. She should be alarmed by the casual violence in his voice. Instead, she felt a thrill run through her. Possessive much? When it comes to you? Absolutely. The dinner with David was exactly as awful as Lena expected. He was charming, manipulative, and made it crystal clear that his interest in her had nothing to do with business and everything to do with hurting Ethan. He's obsessed with you, you know, David said over dessert, his smile predatory. It's his weakness. The great Ethan Blackwood, finally vulnerable. And all because of a pretty little assistant who doesn't realize she's just another acquisition. Lena's hand tightened on her wineglass. I'm not an acquisition. Aren't you? He moved you, watches you, controls your every movement. That's not love, sweetheart. That's ownership. You don't know anything about us. I know men like him. I know that his need to control everything will eventually suffocate you. And when it does, he reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. I'll be waiting. Lena pulled her hand back. I think we're done here. We're done when I say we're. The lady said she's done. Ethan's voice cut through the restaurant like a blade. He appeared beside their table, and the fury in his eyes made even David pale. So unless you want me to drag you outside and demonstrate what happens when someone touches what's mine, I suggest you leave. Now. David stood, straightening his jacket. This isn't over, Blackwood. Yes, it is. And David. Ethan's smile was terrifying. I have 3 hours of recordings of you attempting corporate espionage and harassing my employee. Leave the city by morning, or I release them to the SEC and every major news outlet in the country. Your choice. David's face went white. He left without another word. Ethan turned to Lena, his fury dissolving into concern. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? I'm fine. But Ethan, she stood, and suddenly the restaurant, the bug, the entire charade felt suffocating. I need air. She pushed past him, through the restaurant and out into the cool night. She made it half a block before Ethan caught up, his hand gentle on her arm. Lena. He was right. The words burst from her like a dam breaking. About you being possessive, about you controlling things. He was right, Ethan, and I hate that he was right. No. He was wrong. Ethan turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. Yes, I'm possessive. Yes, I want to protect you from everything and everyone. But Lena, you're not an acquisition. You're not a thing I own. You're the woman I'm falling in love with, and that terrifies me more than any hostile takeover ever could. Lena's breath caught. What? I'm in love with you. I have been since that day in the boardroom when I saw you trying to hold yourself together. I'm in love with your strength, your stubbornness, the way you challenge me when everyone else just agrees. I'm in love with you, and I don't know how to do this without being terrified that something will happen to you. Tears burned her eyes. If you love me, you have to let me make my own choices. Even when they're dangerous. Even when they scare you. I know. His voice broke. I know, and I'm trying. But Lena, if something happened to you because I didn't act, then that would be my choice and my consequence. Not yours. She reached up, cupping his face. I love you too, you impossible, controlling man. But I need you to trust that I'm strong enough to stand beside you, not behind you. I do trust you. It's the rest of the world I don't trust. Then we face it together. She kissed him, soft, sweet, a promise. No more walls. No more secrets. Just us, figuring this out as we go. Ethan kissed her back, and it was desperate and gentle and everything she needed. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. Together, he whispered, I can do that. For you, I can do anything. Even let me walk to work without security? Don't push it. Lena laughed, and it felt like freedom. 6 months later, Lena stood in Ethan's office, their office now, reviewing the quarterly reports. She'd been promoted to COO, a position she'd earned through competence and determination, not Ethan's influence. Well, not entirely his influence. The Morrison acquisition went through, she said, looking up from her tablet. His company's been absorbed by the Singapore firm. Good. Ethan didn't look up from his computer. He won't bother us again. You know you can't intimidate every person who looks at me, right? I can try. Lena circled the desk, leaning against it beside him. You're impossible. You love it. I do. She smiled, running her fingers through his hair. Even when you're being overprotective and possessive. I'm working on it. I know. And I appreciate it. She kissed him softly. But Ethan? If you try to install security cameras in my new apartment, I'm breaking up with you. He had the grace to look sheepish. I was just concerned about the lack of a doorman. Ethan. Fine. No cameras. He pulled her into his lap, arms wrapping around her waist. But I'm keeping the panic button. Deal. They sat there in comfortable silence, the city spreading out beneath them like a promise. It wasn't perfect. Ethan still struggled with his need to control, and Lena still had moments when his intensity overwhelmed her. But they were learning. Growing. Together. I love you, Ethan murmured against her hair. Not because you need me, but because you choose me every day. I love you too, Lena whispered back. My possessive, impossible, wonderful zoo. Yours, he agreed. Always yours. And in that moment, with the city lights twinkling below and the man she loved holding her like she was precious, Lena understood the truth. She didn't belong to him. She belonged to herself, her choices, her strength, her future. But she chose him. Every single day, she chose him. And that made all the difference. If you made it this far, you're amazing. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me your favorite moment from this story, and subscribe because, trust me, there are more intense romance stories coming your way. Should Lena and Ethan get a sequel? Let me know below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.